The greatest trick in modern capitalism. Think about Coca-Cola. When you picture Coca-Cola, what do you see? You see massive bottling plants stretching for miles. You see fleets of red 18-wheeler trucks dominating the highways. You see a global supply chain moving millions of gallons of liquid sugar every single day. Now, think about Red Bull. Red Bull sells over 12 billion cans a year. They command the highest market share of any energy drink on the planet. Their founder became the richest man in Austria, amassing a net worth of over $20 billion. They own 2 Formula One racing teams, multiple professional soccer clubs, and a global media empire. But here is the most astonishing, mind-bending secret in modern business. Red Bull does not make Red Bull. They don't own a single manufacturing plant. They don't own the trucks that deliver it. They don't even manufacture the aluminum cans. If you were to walk into Red Bull's global headquarters, you wouldn't find vats of syrup or assembly lines. You would find editors, marketers, extreme sports coordinators, and graphic designers. Red Bull is not a beverage company. They are a massive, high-octane marketing and media agency that simply happens to sell a drink to fund its wild adventures. How did they pull this off? How did a company with no factories conquer the globe and hack capitalism? To understand this, we have to travel back to 1982, to the sweltering, traffic-choked streets of Bangkok, Thailand, where a jet-lagged toothpaste salesman stumbled upon a liquid gold mine. The jet-lagged salesman and the Thai pharmacist. The year is 1982. Dietrich Mateschitz, a 38-year-old marketing director for a German toothpaste company called Blendax, steps off a plane in Bangkok. He is exhausted. The time zone difference has him completely destroyed, suffering from a crushing case of jet lag. He gets into a cab and notices something peculiar. The taxi drivers, the tuk-tuk drivers, and the construction workers are all drinking from tiny, uncarbonated brown glass bottles. The drink is called Krating Daeng, which translates to red gaur, a massive, fierce wild bovine found in Southeast Asia. Desperate for energy, Mateschitz buys a bottle. It is thick, syrupy, incredibly sweet, and loaded with caffeine, B vitamins, and an amino acid called taurine. Within 20 minutes, Mateschitz' brain fog clears. His jet lag vanishes. He feels invincible. He looks at the tiny bottle and doesn't just see a cure for his fatigue. He sees an empire. Mateschitz tracks down the creator of the drink, a brilliant Thai pharmacist and businessman named Chaleo Yuvithia. Yuvithia had formulated Krating Daeng specifically for blue-collar workers, truck drivers and laborers who needed to stay awake through grueling, endless shifts. Mateschitz pitches Yuvithia a wild idea: let me take this formula, adapt it for Western tastes, and introduce it to Europe. They strike a deal. Each invests $500,000 of their own savings to take a 49% stake in a new company, giving the remaining 2% to Yuvithia's son. But there was a massive problem. Western consumers were used to Coca-Cola and Pepsi, light, refreshing, carbonated, and cheap. Krating Daeng was none of those things. So, Mateschitz made a few tweaks. He added carbonation, toned down the agonizing sweetness, and translated the name to English. Red Bull was born. But having a product is one thing. Getting people to drink it is another. And Mateschitz's first attempt at market research was a complete, unmitigated disaster. The worst taste test in history. Before launching in Europe in 1987, Mateschitz hired a market research firm to test the new, carbonated Red Bull. The results were not just bad. They were catastrophic. Participants hated the taste. They said it tasted like liquid bubblegum mixed with cough syrup. They hated the logo. They hated the small, weirdly shaped 250 milliliter silver and blue can, which looked more like a battery than a beverage. The market researchers handed Mateschitz a report that essentially said, "Do not launch this product. It will fail. Nobody wants this." Any normal businessman would have quit. But Dietrich Mateschitz wasn't normal. He looked at the disastrous data and had an epiphany that would change marketing forever. If people think it tastes weird, and looks like a battery, it shouldn't be marketed as a refreshing soda. It should be marketed as a high-performance, quasi-medicinal elixir. And more importantly, he did the exact opposite of what traditional economics dictates. Instead of pricing it cheaply to compete with Coca-Cola, he priced it astronomically high. Why? Because of perceived value. If you see a tiny can that costs double the price of a massive bottle of Coke, your brain subconsciously assumes it must do something incredible. Mateschitz didn't want to sell a thirst quencher. He wanted to sell a feeling. He wanted to sell energy, focus, and edge. But with limited funds, he couldn't afford television commercials or billboard campaigns. He had to invent a completely new way of marketing. The phantom marketing strategy. When Red Bull launched in Austria, Mateschitz deployed a strategy that is now legendary in business schools. It's called guerrilla marketing, and Red Bull virtually invented it. He targeted the exact opposite of the Thai truck drivers. He targeted college students and the underground club scene. But he didn't buy ads. Instead, he paid students to drive around in quirky cars with giant Red Bull cans strapped to the roof, the now famous student brand managers. Their job? Go to college parties, libraries during finals week, and massive raves, and just hand out free cans. But the most genius, devilish tactic was the empty can strategy. Mateschitz instructed his team to take thousands of crushed, empty Red Bull cans and secretly leave them in the trash cans and on the tables of the hottest nightclubs, bars, and college campuses across Europe. When people walked into a club, they saw trash cans overflowing with these weird, expensive silver cans. It created the ultimate optical illusion. Everyone thought, I don't know what this stuff is, but everyone else is drinking it, so I need to try it. Then, the rumors started. Because the drink contained taurine, an urban legend began spreading that the secret ingredient in Red Bull was actually extracted from bull semen or bull testicles. Did Red Bull deny it? Absolutely not. They let the rumor run wild. It made the brand edgy, dangerous, and mysterious. Soon, bartenders discovered that mixing this strange, hypercaffeinated syrup with vodka created a cocktail that kept clubgoers partying until 6 a.m. The vodka Red Bull became a global phenomenon. Red Bull didn't have to pay bars to stock their product, the bars were begging for it. Buying the extremes, the media empire. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Red Bull was printing money. But as competitors like Monster and Rockstar entered the market, Mateschitz knew he couldn't just rely on college parties anymore. He realized something profound. Traditional companies sponsor events to get their logo seen. But sponsoring an event means you are just a guest. Red Bull decided to own the events. They stopped buying commercial time and started creating their own content. They launched the Red Bull Air Race. They bought a struggling Formula One team, renamed it Red Bull Racing, and dominated the World Championship. They sponsored extreme cliff divers, BMX riders, snowboarders, and breakdancers. But the ultimate flex, the moment Red Bull transcended from a beverage brand to a historic media superpower, happened on October 14, 2012. Red Bull funded a project called Stratos. They put an Austrian skydiver named Felix Baumgartner in a capsule, attached it to a massive helium balloon, and floated him 24 miles up into the stratosphere. Millions of people around the world tuned in live on YouTube to watch a man step out of a capsule on the edge of space. He fell to Earth, breaking the sound barrier with his own body. And plastered on his helmet, on his suit, and on the capsule, the Red Bull logo. Red Bull spent roughly $30 million on the Stratos project. But the media value they received from global news coverage, live streams, and social media was estimated at over $330 million. They weren't selling a drink. They were selling the idea that Red Bull gives you wings. they became a premium content creator. Today, Red Bull Media House produces feature films, documentaries, and magazines. They are a media empire that monetizes its audience by selling them an energy drink. The ultimate business hack. Which brings us back to the most astonishing fact of this entire story. With all this global dominance, all the F1 cars, and all the billions in revenue, who is actually making the liquid inside the can? Remember when Mateschitz started the company? He didn't want to deal with logistics, factory workers, supply chain management, or aluminum sourcing. He wanted to focus purely on the brand. So, he made a deal with an Austrian fruit juice company called Rauch. To this day, Rauch manufactures, fills, and packages almost every single can of Red Bull on Earth. Red Bull simply pays Rauch to make the drink, and then Red Bull marks up the price by thousands of %. An average can of Red Bull costs about 9 to 12 cents to manufacture. You buy it for $3 or $4. That insane profit margin is entirely reinvested into the marketing machine. Dietrich Mateschitz, the jet-lagged toothpaste salesman, passed away in 2022. But he left behind a blueprint that defied every rule of traditional business. He proved that in the modern economy, you don't need to own the factory. You don't need to own the trucks. If you can capture the imagination of the world, if you can own the culture, and if you can tell a story so powerful that people willingly pay a premium just to hold your logo in their hands, you can build an empire out of thin air. And that is exactly how Red Bull made billions, without ever making a single drop of soda.